Well, I'll tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll ask you. How much?
Right.
How much would you take to fight Jake Paul?
I don't know. I have to get ready. Listen, you got to remember, I'm 53 now. So trust me when I tell you this, though. Out of all the people he's fought so far, I would last longer than all of them put together.
Yes. Everyone that he's fought so far is a joke.
Like beyond, it's time he has to fight somebody.
Yes,
he has to. He has
Rumor
to fight somebody.
is June 5th is Floyd.
Who?
Floyd.
No.
Yes.
No.
They said they've come to a conditional agreement.
No, that's his brother, not Jake.
Yes.
You're talking.
No.
Logan. Logan's gonna fight him, not Jake.
I mean Logan. Whatever. With the fighter one, not the.
Yeah, no, they're both fighters, but Jake's the better fighter now. He is technically the better fighter, but his brother's not very good. But he's pretty good. And like I said, hey, the clock's ticking. It doesn't matter. They can pretend they can do all this bullshit right now, but it's gonna happen. They're gonna fight real people soon. And when they fight real people soon, they're gonna find out what it's like to get punched in the face for real.
Well, let's hope so. Because everyone wants to see it now.
I do.
You can't call it Daniel Cormier and not expect something to happen.
And Daniel's no joke because he might not box you, but he'll pick you up over his head and drop you on your head, right? So when I saw that the other night, I was like, oh no, they don't get it. Like this, he won't box with you. He'll just like suplex you into the fourth row, Like there's levels to this. Yeah.
If you're around the Windermere and Hampton Market area, make sure you check out Boston Pizza.
You have to.
Next segment sponsored by Boston Pizza, Hampton and Windermere Market. Say hi to Terry. Hopefully we get these restaurants open soon up here in Alberta so they can start generating some new income again. And patios aren't, it's nice sitting on a patio once in a while, but
he's got a great patio though.
This is Alberta though.
He's got a great patio though.
That's right.
He does.
But another big set of fights with Masvidal takes he ate one.
It was like a cartoon. His head spun 360 all the way around.
He ate one. Like he opened his mouth and it was spoon fed to him. Like someone catching a shot that clean. Nobody's getting up.
You put it the best way I've heard anybody put it. He ate that punch. Like it was like he you're right. I've never heard someone say it like that yet. He literally ate it because his head did like the cartoon 360 around. It was like it was crazy. So it is what it is,
and
man.
Jorge said he'd never been knocked out before, but oh man, he got dummied.
Well, he has now. He has now, and I love Jorge. But hey, it's a vicious game, man. You're playing with
is a scary dude. I don't even know why Connor would even try to dabble in that.
What do you mean? Well, Connor
called him out.
Well, he didn't call out Uriah Hall. He called out Usman.
Oh,
Usman.
Oh,
no,
Usman.
He called Usman. Yeah, and that's a mistake. Connor, do not do that. Like I said, it's great. It's great. We can all sit here all day and say, I want to fight this guy. I want to fight this guy. But is that ever going to happen? Absolutely not. That's a horrible fight for Conor McGregor. Yeah. Horrible.
I mean, in all honesty, I don't know if that guy should fight anymore, other than doing the celebrity boxing matches.
I agree, and he makes a fortune doing it. So
everyone's going to watch.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I agree.
I think the only thing is that UFC, as we've talked about before, better do something in a freaking hurry to get someone else to sell some pay-per-views.
Yes,
because no one's buying them.
Johnny Bones Jones is eating Cheetos and pizzas, trying to be a heavyweight, not getting any fights. Everybody's sitting around going, "Who's next?" Yeah. I mean, there's some great fighters in the UFC right now, but who sells? Who gets the buys? Right?
I don't know why you don't say, "Hey, we're going to chop this pay-per-view in half, cost-wise."
That's what they
got to
start
doing.
doing.
Another series, like throw on one of those, like the ultimate contender series, and
I love it. Great idea.
We'll be right back on the Me and Jesse podcast.
Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavelich and Jesse Martineau. get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavelich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. Our special, and I mean special guest today. All our guests are special, but this one's a little different. This one's nuts. That's why we understand. That's why we understand them. Okay, everybody. Laval St.Germain on the show today. Laval, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, I'm happy to be here. I've been excited, looking forward to this.
Laval, I mean, for some people watching right now might not know who you are. They're going to know very soon, and we're going to go through everything.
100%.
But I don't know if I've ever seen Mark so excited. He had his own father on the show last week, and he didn't care. But he hasn't been this excited for a guest yet. So he has been jacked, to say the least, that you've come on the show. And
but you know why though? I'll tell you why. I've watched every episode and every interview you've ever had, Laval, and I can't express how horrible the interviewers were with you. And I mean, because listen, if I heard one more guy go, "Hey, Laval, were you cold when you were on Mount Everest? Hey, Laval, were you wet when you were rowing 53, days on the water?" I mean, this is ridiculous. You understand? I'm one of the few people that's ever going to interview that understands why you do everything. Right. And what disturbs me is when people were interviewing and I was watching these guys interviewing you, I was like, they have no idea that you're a national treasure and that they should have prepared correctly and understood that if you're going to go up Mount Everest, you're going to be cold. If you're going to row for 53 days, you're going to be wet and lonely. And these are the things that you need to understand. See, what I do is I know one thing about you. We have something very similar in our minds. Your mind is committed to always finding a new challenge. And I think that's where you are. And what the horrible part is, one day you're going to get old and that you're not going to be able to achieve. You're going to try to keep doing this into your 70s and 80s and 90s. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, that's true. It's an addiction, I guess, of some sort. But my wife Janet's always saying, "You're going to be that guy. You're going to be that 80-year-old skinny guy who's still running around the reservoir or whatever here." So yeah, it's more than that though. I think it's a lifestyle, and it is something that keeps me moving for sure, and keeps me healthy and active. Yeah.
Well, healthy to say the least. I mean, everybody, this man here climbed Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen, which, how many people?
The only Canadian.
First ever Canadian to do so. Has there been another Canadian to do it?
No.
You're the only one.
Can we say that? Listen, we would like to repeat that to people that are going to be watching the show. The only Canadian to do it. The only. Nobody else.
So why haven't you received the Commission of Canada yet? What's going on with that? What's that award called? What is that? What's the big award we give out?
You're right. No, you're right, Jesse. The merit of something.
Order of Canada.
Order of Canada. That's
Canada,
the one.
Yeah. I hardly think that's appropriate for what I do, but I mean, I have been, considering that I'm from a little town north of Edmonton, where the highest hill around was literally the berm that the railway ran along, the railway line, and that when my dad and I when I was a little kid, my dad and I would go on about what then was in miles, a 4-mile walk, and I would think that was high adventure. So,
what town were you from?
Mornville.
Oh, Mornville. Okay,
Mornville,
so not too long. I'm in Spruce Grove, so not very close.
Yeah, my brother's in Spruce Grove as well.
So okay. I mean, so it's not every prairie boy's. It's not every prairie boy's dream to climb Mount Everest. I don't think, anyway. And so, usually when I'm from BC, so there are some mountains, but usually most people from the prairies, you're right. Like going up the drive-through or something is the biggest incline you go through. But so when was it that you decided, hey, I'm going to do this?
Well, it's interesting, Jesse. I mean, I wasn't able to see these places, obviously, that I wanted to go to and that I was dreaming about. And I couldn't see them the way we can see them now on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. But it was all just through reading. My parents always had a subscription to National Geographic.
Yeah, mine too.
So I grew up, just hoping and praying to get that brown paper covered magazine shoved into our mailbox in Mornville, and then going home and devouring it. And that was my way of, I didn't have any distant mountains to look at, but I could look at them in those magazines, and that got me dreaming. And then my dad was always a big proponent of reading. So I grew up reading things like as disparate as, Tarzan and the Hardy Boys and White Fang.
Yeah.
And,
oh my gosh, great.
all that stuff. And I just said I want to do all that. So it's just simply from reading and from National Geo that got me to.
Now, actually, National Geographic and me have a very significant thing, because that's actually how I knew I wanted to be a photographer. It was the cover with the green-eyed girl, the Afghan girl.
Yeah, Afghan girl.
That changed my life. I was 5 years old when that came out. I remember just staring at it. I'm like, I want to take pictures. And that was
interesting. You say that. It's interesting to say that, Jesse, how your trajectory in your life can be deflected by something like that for you as an image. And for me, I think I can trace it back to the May 1979 cover of National Geographic. And it was a photo of an American expedition climbing K2, which is on the Pakistan-Chinese border.
That's right.
And I remember as a little kid, I was 11 at the time, thinking that I want to wear that parka. The guy had an aluminum face mask on that they were trying out for UV protection. And they had a tent set up on this, this Himalayan ledge, or I guess it'd be the Karakorums where this picture was taken. But I wanted to do all of that. And, when I came back from Everest, I had a letter. I had 2 letters in the mail that day, 2 large packages. This was a couple of weeks after I returned. One was, I opened it up in front of my daughter, Andrea, and it was a letter from Prime Minister Harper congratulating me on summiting Mount Everest and being the first Canadian to climb without oxygen. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. The Prime Minister knows that I did this, and he must have read the article in the Globe and Mail at the time when I was when I had come down alive. And the other package in the mail was another manila envelope, and it was the May 1979 edition of National Geographic, and it was from my dad saying, I think you might want this.
Wow, that's really cool.
2 special packages, and to be honest with you, the National Geographic is the one that I treasured the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now that map behind you, and I see some pins on there. What are the significance of those pins you have on there?
Well, if Janet could hear us right now, she'd be upset. I'm supposed to pin all the places that I've been, all the places that we've been together, and then also the places that the kids have been without us. So I've been very fortunate to be on all 7 continents now, and all over that map. There's never many places I haven't been. I can think of maybe New Zealand and a couple of other small places like that. But I've been pretty fortunate because of my job as an airline captain.
Yes,
as an airline employee, we get travel benefits in airlines all over the world. So it just opens the door to some spectacular travel opportunities.
So
would you be a pilot? Would you be a pilot because of that? Is that the reason? Is that the number? Honestly, like we're no one. Don't worry, nobody watches this show, so you can.
Just between you and me.
Yeah. So just between us, is that one of the main factors of becoming an airline pilot for you?
Yeah, my dad. Back to, once again, we're going full circle here, but back to watching me read and seeing me, go through the pages of National Geo, and my dad said, "You want to go to all these places, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Well, you should become an airline pilot." And I said, okay. So when I was 15, I started my training at what was then called the Edmonton Municipal Airport. It became the Center Airport. Now it's gone, sadly. But when I was, that was grade 10 when I started my ground school training. So I started early, and it was with the end goal being to see the world. So, and I also like flying airplanes. Obviously, it's a fun job.
It is always cool. Although we see movies like Catch Me If You Can, and it seems like it was a lot cooler back then. But
yeah, that's right.
But
yeah, that's true.
So travel is obviously a big part of it. I love travel too. It is absolutely perspective shifting is the best way I could probably say it, to go to other cultures and see how other people live besides us here in central Alberta and Canada. But what was Going around Everest or climbing Everest, what did you discover about the culture there? Because I think sometimes we just think, oh, you just go and you just climb up there and that's all it is. But there's actually a lot of like local support too that has to happen, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, Tibet in itself, I climbed it from the Tibet side, which is now part of China, and there's a whole long sordid tale about Tibet and what's happened in Tibet since the Cultural Revolution. So that could be a podcast episode in itself. Yeah. But we traveled from Nepal into Tibet, so we had Sherpas that we used. I didn't have a personal Sherpa. We had Sherpas that other climbers used, and they were Sherpas from Nepal. So they're ethnically different than Tibetans, different language, same religion. They're connected in a lot of ways because the Sherpas are the residents or the inhabitants of Nepal that live in these high altitude villages, and but different language, similar cultures in a sense, but same religion. And that aspect of it was really important to me, the spirituality of it. I love that when I travel to see whether I'm in on the side of a mountain in Somalia or whether I'm in Tibet or whether I'm in along a river in the Northwest Territories. I really like respecting the local indigenous beliefs, and I get a lot out of that. Actually, I get a lot out of their beliefs, whether it's an animist belief, whether it's a mix of their traditional beliefs and Christianity, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's I'm on the slopes of a mountain in Iran and I can hear the Muslim call to prayer. It's pretty special. So I really love that. And traveling to me is not just going to test myself physically on these big peaks or riding my bike long distances or doing the stuff I do, but I love the cultural aspect and the people that I meet. I've had some amazing experiences. I mean, I've been captured by the Iraqi security forces and questioned. I was last March, I was captured in Somalia, and a lot of people would kind of, I guess, freak out in a way when I tell these stories. But at the time, when you're in them, you can sense when you're in true danger or not. And what I've discovered is fully 99.9% of the people on Earth, no matter what their religion or where they're from, are good people. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's talk about that for a second. You said something specific there. True danger. When have you experienced true danger?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I think I've confronted my mortality a lot, Jesse, over the years. If you play in this world, you're going to come to the edge a lot of times, and the trick is not to go over the edge. But like setting off avalanches, falling into crevasses, being in big storms in the North Atlantic Ocean in a 20-foot long rowboat. People dying on my expeditions. It's having machine guns pointed at me, crossing minefields. Like there's all kinds of stuff, and that can be a very you can get a high price playing these games for sure. But at the same time, you're living life at the ultimate edge, and it's extremely exciting.
I get the impression though that you're not a daredevil though. You're about preparation, and I want people to understand that. I know when I talked to you earlier about this before, because people think, oh, he must be crazy to do all these things, right? But it's not true. It's about calculation. It's about preparation. It's about when people go,
oh, calculated risk.
It's a calculated risk, but okay, you're gonna go summit Everest without O2. Explain that to people watching, the preparation of getting ready for that. And you get what I'm saying? Because
you don't just go out there and wing it.
Correct.
There's a lot of work behind the scenes for sure. I mean, anytime anybody's sort of excelling at something, and I don't want to say excel at anything, but let's say somebody is excelling, there's a lot of work that goes into that behind the scenes. And, preparation for me is just about all of it. And, there's years and years and years of training that go into that. I'm not a Himalayan climber that just simply paid my way to get on an Everest expedition. I climbed all over the world first. and sort of, school of hard knocks in some sense, where you have to learn how to do all this stuff. And sometimes when you think back of the stuff you did when you were young, it's, and you guys too, I'm sure, but maybe we're not playing in the mountains, but you're lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, there's a lot of hard work. Yeah. I was literally training in base camp in Kathmandu. I was running the stairs at the Monkey Temple every morning. I was working out in a local gym with locals. I was going on trail runs at base camp. I was climbing all the peaks around Everest. On the drive up there, you drive up over, a couple of weeks to get accustomed to the altitude. In every village we stopped in Tibet, I'd go for either a hike or a trail run, trying to force my body to acclimatize. So there's a lot of work that goes into it and a lot of preparation, just like with the ocean row. I mean, you don't just jump in a little rowboat and strike off across the North Atlantic. It takes.
See, I think that's way tougher than Everest, in my opinion. If I'm as an outsider looking in, I'm looking at the 53 days on the water would be. Am I right or wrong? Was that way tougher than Everest?
Psychologically, it was tougher.
Yeah.
Mentally, it was tougher for sure.
Yeah.
Mark, but physically, no. I didn't find it very challenging physically, but mentally, when I got in that boat at 5:30 in the morning in Halifax that day, and shoved off from that dock, I mean, that became one of my taglines: is step out, meaning step out of the tent at high camp in Everest and shove off the dock in Halifax. And that took. When I think back to that, it almost makes me emotional how difficult that was to shove off that dock, wondering, I had 100 days worth of food. I had 100 days worth of supplies that I needed out there in the ocean. And I remember thinking, I'm a boy from central Alberta, northern Alberta, who knows nothing about, by then I knew stuff about the ocean, but I thought, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
And that took, shoving off the dock was mentally tough. It was a lot tougher than pulling down the zipper on the tent fly on Everest to go to the summit, for sure.
Yeah, I almost threw up 3 times watching you row because I know. No,
you mean because I was naked?
No, not at all. Laval, I almost threw up multiple times watching the rowing of it because I put my mind on the boat with you, right? And not on day 1. I put my mind on you at about day 17. Okay,
you can't see anything else.
Because now all of a sudden we have no boundaries, we have no shore, we have no nothing. And see, this is what I do understand it. I understood the whole thing, and I thought to myself, could I do that? Because I was wondering, like, you're in the middle Atlantic Ocean, am I correct?
North Atlantic, yep.
Yeah, North Atlantic, right? And now I'm thinking to myself, now there's no way for you to calculate waves. There's no way for you to calculate weather. And that's always been the factor with everything. That must have been the factor with Everest.
Well,
and the factor with the Atlantic Ocean. You cannot predict that. There's no way.
It's actually, you'd be surprised how accurate the weather reports and the wave heights I was getting. I had the bit of a short story here, but the guy that I used for my weather planning on Everest. Now, Everest is extremely critical that you get the weather window. So what you want to do is you want to climb between the pre-monsoon heavy winds, which will sweep you off the mountain. And then there's a short window when where the jet stream moves away from the top of Everest, it gets pushed to the north. So it gets pushed to the north of Tibet. And then between the high winds of the jet stream hitting Everest, you get the monsoon. And the monsoon brings obviously snow, and you can't climb in heavy snow when you're on Everest. So there's a short window between mid-May and end of May where you want to try and hit it. And sometimes it doesn't exist. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. So if you try and climb too early, you're going to get blown off the mountain. If you try and climb and the monsoon snows hit, you can't make it to the top.
And that's the only time of year you do that.
Yeah, May is the year. You can also do it in November, but most people do it in May.
Okay.
And it's still that window. It's still a short window. So I had a guy here. It's really funny. He's a weather dispatcher for our airline, Canadian North. He's the manager of dispatch. His name is Jim Rediker. We gave him a Sherpa named Jimbo Rediker because of Everest. And he was my weather guy on Everest. And this guy's from Regina. So he doesn't know anything about mountains, doesn't know anything about mountain weather.
Oh my God.
But he turned himself into mountain weather expert. So much so that for years after I climbed Everest in 2010, other expeditions were trying to get Jimbo to do their weather, and he called it. So I was down in base camp, and he said, "You've got 1 week. You got to go now." And I had no way of disproving it. I had no way of
believing.
I just did it. And
wow.
Jim nailed it. So long story, Jim was my wind, weather, and waves guy on the North Atlantic. He's from Regina. Once again,
talking about the ocean.
You couldn't be more centralized on the continent of North America than where Jim's from. And he nailed it. He had it. He became like a North Atlantic weather guru. He could tell me almost to the hour when a storm would be passing, what kind of wave heights I was going to be getting, and we were able to communicate via satellite communications. And it's still terrifying to shove off that deck.
What was the worst weather you faced in those 53 days?
The highest waves I had were 8-meter tall waves, and the boat sat about
25 feet-ish.
Yeah.
The boat sat. The boat was about 1.5 meters across, wide, and it sat about 30 centimeters off the water. So those are big waves for that little boat. And the thing with these types of storms in the North Atlantic is that they happen day and night. Yeah. So being in a storm like that at night was it was pretty terrifying. I remember one particular storm where I thought the boat was coming apart. I got on I crawled on top of my survival suit and started to get ready to put it on because I thought my little boat was going to be crushed. And I remember sending a message to Jimbo, my wind, weather, and waves guy. And I said, "Jim, listen, I don't think I can take this much longer. How long is this storm going to last?" And I may have used spicier language than that. And he said, it took him a while to respond because it was stampede. And he goes, "Oh, sorry, dude. I was stampeding." And he goes, he said, "Hang in there. You should be out of that storm in about 16 hours. And I could literally maybe have survived another 20 minutes, I thought. So yeah, 16 hours later.
So when you're in the boat, do you like seal it up and you just hide underneath?
Yeah, in a big storm, you'd have to you'd shut the door, and it was like this ballistic plexiglass door that was sealed, and you would control the rudder with these 2 ropes that you would control. So I have to surf down the wave straight ahead, so that I wouldn't get to the bottom of the wave and then capsize, which I did a couple of times. And at night, you couldn't see anything. You're always looking at the back of the boat. So you became a real expert in being able to feel how the boat was tracking through the water. You know how people talk about a flow state when you're playing in a sport or whatever it may be. Well, literally in this boat, I got into this flow state where I could feel exactly how it was coming down a big wave, like a big 8-meter, 25-foot high wave, and how it was going to react to the bottom. And the thing that you learn sailing or rowing is that at the top of a wave where the water breaks white, where the white cap is, there's a rotational movement. So the boat comes up to the top, and then because of the way the water crests over top of the wave, it causes the boat to spin. So you have to counteract that every time you come down a wave. So it made for some long nights, terrifying nights. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you come back home? How do you live day to day now?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you depressurize?
Well, I mean, you've done some pretty you pushed yourself to the height of adrenaline and the limit. How do you come back and live a day to day, waking up eating bacon and eggs and go on
a bike ride,
going on a little cruise down the road?
Yeah. It is that is a challenge. I do remember when I came back from Everest, I was in a management role at the airline. I was the chief pilot and the director of flight operations. So I remember coming back to work. I had a big beard. My hand was wrapped up because I'd had 3 fingers amputated from, at this time I hadn't had amputated. They're still frozen. They're still black and mummified. But I sat in my office and my secretary came in and asked me to approve some overtime for some pilots. And I just remember thinking, like, how unimportant is this? I mean, like 2 weeks ago, the most important thing in my life was making sure I had water in my Nalgene bottle and fuel in my fuel tank, and that I had my proper gear on. And now I'm worried about overtime for a pilot. And it was really hard to get back. And then I remember Jana, my wife, like, as soon as I was back in town, I was like, "Hey, on the way home from so-and-so, can you pick up some bread and milk and whatever?" And it was crazy.
Yeah. making that
I'm not
shift.
The first person. Yeah, you have to make that shift and realize that the real life that I experienced on Everest is there's a real life back home in Calgary too, right?
So, I know nothing about climbing Everest, so I always hear the K2 term. Is that up Everest too, just a different way?
No, it's the second highest mountain in the the world in Pakistan.
Yeah, it's a different one.
So K2 is totally different. And then,
totally different.
but there's different ways up Everest?
Different routes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So how long does it take from that, that base camp we hear so often to get to the summit?
It took me just about 2 months. I think I was on the mountain in a tent for 56 days on Everest. And it wouldn't take you 56 days if Everest was sitting here in Alberta because it wouldn't be high enough. But because it's so high, your body has to acclimatize. And it takes that long for your body to build the additional red blood cells, to reroute your capillaries, to adapt physiologically to this. So for example, if I were to take the three of us right now and drive up to base camp in Tibet, instantaneously put us there, we'd probably die within a day. That's just at base camp. So, so what you do is you approach base camp slowly.
Okay.
And then when you get there, you're pretty sick. Like it feels like a severe hangover. You're kind of curled up in a ball and you got a bad headache. You're super weak and lethargic, and then your body starts to adapt. And what you do is you go up to the next camp, which is probably about 300 to 400 meters higher in elevation. Spend the night there, feel like crap again, come back down to base camp and sleep. And then you keep doing this and building your body up, trying to force it to adapt. And by the end of it, when you get down to base camp, after you've summited Everest without oxygen, it literally feels like you're by the seashore. It feels like the air is rich and thick and green and full of life.
Wow, man. Yeah. And okay, so you open up the tent on the last day. Yeah. How long is that hike to the top?
Yeah, so what you do is there's a series of camps that go up Everest. There's base camp, and then there's all these intermediate camps. So we've got one called intermediate base camp, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, and then that's your high camp on the Tibet side. So it's high. If I remember right, it's over 27,000 feet above sea level. And you don't sleep. You're on a super steep slope, sort of a horrible place, windswept, no life. There is a climber's body right beside my tent that had died in a previous expedition.
Frozen?
He was frozen, yeah. Frozen. And then you kind of lay there and you brew up. You have a hanging stove, and brewing up means that you're making tea, you're making soup. You don't have much of an appetite at altitude at all, trying to get liquids into you and some kind of nourishment. And then you lay there for about 6 or 7 hours. We didn't even bring sleep bags. We laid in our high altitude down suits.
Laval, what goes through your head though when you see the dead guy next? Like you just passed by that as you were telling the story. I want to know what I want to know what you thought in your mind when you saw the frozen dead guy next to your tent.
It is. It's a feeling of sadness for that guy, because you know that there's nothing special about you that could prevent that from happening to you. I thought this guy happened to be a Serbian climber, and I thought he's got a family back home. He may have kids. He's left his spouse behind, his parents, and it's chilling. But I think I've never obviously been to war, but I think it would be similar to seeing a person dying in battle. At the time, you don't have that much time to process it. You don't have that much time to really think about it. You just have those really cursory thoughts about it, and you're sort of in a fight for survival anyway. But yeah, it's certainly sobering. So back to the tent, you sit there, and then at about 9:30 at night, you decide to get up. It's pitch black, and you start getting geared up. But for example, to put your boots on up there, it takes about 15 minutes a boot because you're moving so slowly from the lack of oxygen. Wow. I was climbing with a Brit, Mark Del Stanch, who was climbing with O2, and an Aussie, Gavin Vickers. So at about 11:30 at night, if I remember right, we left the tents, and it was snowing and it was pitch black, and off we went. And I got ahead of the guys and climbed for most of the night and into the morning by myself. And then about an hour below the summit, Mark caught me on the final slope to the summit, and we went up together. But that climb was, obviously difficult because you're in the death zone and your body is dying the whole time you're there. It's very physically difficult. My hand was frozen. I froze my hand about 3 hours out of high camp. And then about 10 hours later, maybe 10 and a half hours later, it took me 17 hours and 35 minutes to do the round trip from high camp to the summit, back down to high camp. About 10 hours later, I was on the top with Mark, and it was about 10:30 in the morning, and we were there. But I didn't feel any success, no emotion, no happiness, zero. And every mountain I've ever climbed, and I mean every mountain I've ever climbed, I get a little emotional at the top because I'm happy, because I'm exhilarated, but I didn't feel anything. I just thought, I'm in for a hell of a battle now. So,
how long were you on the top?
20 minutes. I told Mark, I looked at my watch and I said, 20 minutes, I'm dying. We got to get down. So we took pictures. I fumbled around. I had the frozen hand, so it was a little more difficult to do stuff up there and get pictures done and stuff. There was no view. It was not very good weather. And then we started down and we got separated on the descent right off the bat. And then it was just, the closest I've come to not making it back, for sure. I was so exhausted that I decided I was going to take a nap. And I was told that if you climb Everest without O's, O2, we call it O's, that if you take a nap, you're not going to wake up. I remember this American climber telling me that before the expedition. He goes, dude, whatever you do, do not take a nap. You're going to want to lay down. And I got to a point where I decided I was going to take a nap. And I saw down this ridge in the distance an old tent that somebody had left up there. It was shredded in my mind. And I decided I was going to make it down to that tent and then crawl into the nylon of that tent and take a nap. But I knew I wasn't going to wake up. And I knew I was not going to see Jan and the kids, but it didn't bother me because I was so exhausted. So exhausted. I remember thinking that if I nap and I don't wake up, it'll be a good nap because I'm that tired. I need a good long nap.
Wow.
So I was at that point. So as I got closer, it was low visibility. And as I got closer, the tent transformed as I got closer because of the visibility and probably hypoxia into a person. And it was the last Canadian who tried to climb Everest without oxygen. He'd been laying there for a year in the snow. Frank Zebart, he kept me alive because when I saw him, I went, bloody hell, I got to keep going. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to.
Wow.
And then to really to round off that story, when I came back, I was doing people started asking me to talk about these expeditions, and I was doing a talk one night, and a man walked up to me afterwards in tears, and he shook my hand, and he said, "Just so you know," he said, Frank and Frank's wife came to our place for his final dinner before he went to Kathmandu. Wow. I'm going to tell his wife that him laying there may have saved your life. So yeah, it was, but I kept going, and I made it down to the tent, and it was a long, tough night because we had climbers sort of staggering into the camp. We lost people. It was a tough night. Didn't get much sleep. Well, you don't sleep at all, really, and you're in the death zone, so you don't actually recuperate. So to get out of that tent the next day and keep on going down took everything I had. But it was.
How far down before you start feeling a little better?
Every step down, you start to feel better. But okay. I was so exhausted that I was probably taking 5 steps and sitting in the snow, 5 steps, sitting in the snow. Oh, and then once I got down to about 7,000 meters, which is about 23,000 feet, I felt, strong again. But I didn't feel like I'd climbed Everest yet because I knew there was still a good chance I'd get the chop somewhere on the mountain on the way down. One mistake, crevasse, avalanche. But I got down to Advanced Base Camp, which is at about the same elevation as the highest mountain in North America. So it's about just over 20,000 feet. So Denali in Alaska is that high, and that's one of our base camps. And I got there, and there was an American doctor who looked at my hand. She just said, soak it in warm water and try and thaw it out. So I thought it out, and which was painful, but I had a radio. And meanwhile, one of my teammates who had left the tent the night that I staggered back down to the tent, he left later that night. He was dying up in the mountain, and we lost him. So I was listening to that radio chatter, and I knew where some oxygen bottles were from another expedition. I was trying to point the guys out to that, but we never got Peter Kinlock. So yeah, it was a emotional, physically, psychologically draining experience. But 2 days later, I walked by the last, what I'd call an objective hazard, which is this big serac of ice, like a, how do I explain it? Like a tower of ice beside the trail, maybe 10 or 15 meters high. It could just collapse on you. Once I walked past that, and I knew I was past all the objective hazards, other than maybe getting attacked by a yak, that I made it. And then I remember thinking, I did it with Mount Everest. So.
Laval, I don't know how to say this, but was it worth? And I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. Is it worth losing the 3 fingers?
Oh yeah. It was.
Listen,
I didn't lose the 3 fingers in Everest because it was cold. I lost the 3 fingers in Everest because I made a mistake. I had the wrong mitts for the device I had in my hand to slide up and down the rope. It's called an ascender. We call it a Jumar. So that'll always haunt me that I made that mistake.
And that was the reason why. That was the reason why.
Oh yeah, I mean it was cold, but listen, guys, you're from Edmonton.
Yeah.
It was. I bet you it wasn't. I think it was maybe minus 27 on the top.
Okay.
It wasn't super cold. I mean, I've done far colder things, and you guys have stood out waiting for a bus in colder temperatures. But if you don't have the right gear and you don't have oxygen, and you can, one tiny mistake like having gloves that were mitts that were a little bit too big for that thing I was hanging on to, compressed the down around my fingers, and that's why they froze. So, but yeah, it was worth it for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you do some speaking, you do some public speaking. What is that something that you want to do more of now? Is that something that maybe in the next kind of thing, and hopefully when COVID ends and all that stuff, go around and do that more?
It's unbelievably flattering, you guys, that people want to hear these stories. I mean.
I was on Everest with you just now. Like
it was incredible.
Me and Jesse are huge movie people.
Yeah.
So for and when we go to the movie theater, we don't want anybody sitting next to us making any noise. So when you were talking right now, I was on Everest with you, and I was trying to figure out how you lost your fingers. But then the whole time I'm sitting there going, was it worth? And I don't mean is it worth to lose your fingers? I mean, is it? There's no regret in the finger losing because, okay, wrong gloves. I get it. But the experience itself and the way you still tell the story, you've probably told the story so many times, but just now it felt like it was the first time you ever told it. I swear to God. Am I right, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an emotional thing, right? To come that close to the edge for sure. And, I do. I'm always completely flattered and frankly blown away that people want to hear my stories.
Wow.
But it's, I love sharing them because I think what we all want, Mark and Jesse, is I think we all wonder when you're a kid standing on the shore of the ocean, you wonder what's on the other side of that horizon. You wonder what happens when that ship you see disappears over the horizon.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're standing in a valley in the Rockies, in the Himalayas, or in the Alps, and you wonder what's on the other side of that mountain, what's at the top. I want to see what's up there. I think we all want to know what's above the clouds and beyond the horizon. And I think when people do this stuff like that I do, when I do go beyond the horizon or I do go above the clouds, and they want to hear it, they want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's the oldest story in the book.
But do you think, Laval, like most people that know about people that do like base climbing, that guys that climb up, without the ropes,
free
climbers, right? They say every free climber ends up dead, right? Like there's never like a happy ending to a free climber. Very rarely you hear a free climber dies of old age.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you've done the Everest thing, and you go, okay, people have done Everest. Okay. That's not a big thing. Like it's a big thing, but then you do it without O2. It's a big deal. But then you do the 53 days in the boat,
in the Atlantic,
rowing in the Atlantic, and then you start to go, wait a second, Laval falls in the same category as the free climbers because Laval now I'm going to ask because there's got to be the next thing, right? Because you right now riding your bike and doing all that kind of stuff, that's your in between. You're just kind of like keeping in shape. You're doing this, but your whole time, I know you're thinking of what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Because your obsessiveness to amuse yourself. Laval, you're not doing this for other people. I know you're not, because when Jesse said earlier in the interview, hey, maybe you deserve the Canadian Merit Medal or whatever. And I agree with, and Jesse, I agree with you 1,000,000%. Yeah. And Laval's not going to because he's Canadian. And he's like, well, it's not really a big deal, me doing all these things. But here's the news flash, Laval. It is a big deal. and here's another news flash. Tell us, please, what the next venture is, because we're going to let everybody know when you do it this time, because you're going to have your weather guy, but we're going to be your promoters moving forward so that so everybody knows what the hell you're doing.
Well, the first person I have to tell is always Janet. So I would not dare not tell her first, but
of course,
I mean, I'm always working on something, guys, but right now, because of the situation we have with this worldwide pandemic, right. I can't, and I'm one of these guys who, unless I'm like literally going to do it, that, I don't let it out, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you guys a heads up when I know what it is. I'll give you guys.
What are some other things that you would like, one day that maybe aren't as like diabolical?
Jesse, it's endless. It's endless. Like, you have no idea. Like,
hiking the Sahara.
I'd like to fat bike across a desert for sure.
Yeah, I knew that.
There's in there. Guys, it just goes on and on and on. It's a never-ending thing. The world's a big place. It's small, but at the same time, it's big. And we have all kinds of adventures we can do right here in our own backyard too. So
yeah, absolutely.
We heard we might get you this year for 2022 Everest in Edmonton. We heard you might commit to that with us.
I'm there, you guys, and I can't wait. I'll start training so you don't kick my butt.
Come on, man! I'm a piker. I'm a piker next to you. You're going to be carrying me with dragging me along with you. Jeez, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that'll be special to do that next time.
How many summits have you had in Canada?
Oh, I don't know. Not as many as I've had around the world. I think I've climbed the highest point now in 20 different countries.
Okay.
I've climbed
in Canada. Is it Mount Robson or is that?
No, it's Logan.
It's Logan, right? Right.
Yeah, up in the Yukon, and that's probably, honestly, guys, of all the mountains I've done, probably the most special one to me is Canada's highest peak.
Wow.
Tough. The route I did was tough. It was cold. It's remote. It's a lot of danger. It was a good, tough grind, that mountain. I'll never forget that one.
Do you have any form of weaponry on you when you're climbing a mountain, say like in the Yukon? Nothing. No. I'm saying something. If something attacks you, do you have a knife on you? Do you have?
No, there's nothing up there. When you get up into these, like a lot of people don't realize what the high mountains of the Yukon look like. In the St. Elias range, it looks almost identical, like the Karakoram of Pakistan or the Himalayas. There's no. It's all it is ice and rock. There's nothing. Just ice and rock. There's once you get into the high. No, there's nothing. There's the odd bird. Actually, very near the summit of Mount Logan. Probably at about, in feet, it was probably around 17,000 feet. I was climbing with an Aussie guy, and right in the snow in front of me was a dead mallard duck that obviously got caught in a storm and slammed into the side of the mountain. If I was hungrier, I probably would have brought it back to the tent. But when I do expeditions in the Arctic, though, in Nunavut, I carry a nickel-plated short shotgun for polar bears. Polar bears are very dangerous.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like you got to protect yourself, right, to some degree. I mean,
in the Canadian Arctic, if I'm in polar bear country, for sure. Yeah.
What about Antarctica? Have you been on Antarctica?
Yeah, there's nothing unless a penguin attacks you.
No, but have you been there?
Yeah, I climbed the highest mountain in Antarctica 2 years ago. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Antarctica's huge. I was just reading about the other. It is massive.
Yeah.
It's the second biggest landmass other than Russia.
It's big. Yeah. Yeah, it's really big.
So Laval, you were made you couldn't do anything else. Like say when you when you were growing up, I'm saying is you probably couldn't, like, this is what you were meant to do in your life. Like there was nothing else. Like you weren't going to be a plumber. You know what I'm saying? Like it just wasn't going to be your thing.
I mean, nothing wrong with being a plumber, but a plumber can travel too. I mean, they probably make more money than a pilot.
I didn't say that. I was saying though, this was your from the National Geographics this was your thing. This was your air. Like you have to do this. There's nothing else.
I've never grown up. I don't think I've ever grown up. And I just love being out there doing stuff. And I love sharing it with my kids. And at the same time though, like I don't want them to necessarily do some of the stuff I've done because I don't want something bad to happen to my kids. But it's, it is, I don't think I've ever grown up, and I think Janet would probably confirm that if you spoke to Janet about it. I just love adventure. I love adventure, and I really love traveling and meeting other people and seeing other cultures and going to places that people think are too dangerous to go to. And I've been to Iran, I've been to Iraq, I've been to Somalia, and those places have some of the most hospitable, friendly people I've ever met. I mean, next to maybe Newfoundlanders. Honestly, they're just incredible to be in the backcountry of Iran and having a shepherd trying to literally drag you into his tent to give you sugar tea and flatbread that he's made. And I've met some. I've dispelled a lot of propaganda that we see here in the West when it comes to traveling in places like the Middle East for sure. And my last trip was just over a year ago now because of COVID, but I was in Somalia, and of course everybody knows Somalia because of the pirates and because of Black Down, and
that's right.
And it was just beautiful people, a tough part of the world. The average income there is about $300 a year, if I remember, at US. They have nothing other than super hospitable, generous, and that's good to see, because once you see it yourself, you realize that, like I said earlier, 99.9% of the people are super helpful and friendly. So,
wow.
Well,
so I am hooked on travel. If that's what you're getting at, Mark. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I honestly do think you're due Order of Canada. A.
Yeah.
B.
I think we're going to petition.
We have to do something.
Jesse and I will probably petition that. And you'll be embarrassed when you receive it. You can pretend like you don't deserve it and all that stuff. Yeah.
You can do the Canadian thing about it. A Nobel Peace Prize, maybe. And then, honestly, though, I honestly do believe that the next thing has to be promoted immensely.
Wait, yes.
Because honestly, like I mean, these are kind of. I think Canada, we don't like rock stars so much. We like it to a certain point, and if they get too high, then we try to knock them down. But
take it easy. Take it easy. Yeah.
Who do you think you are? But no, I honestly do think that it's time for some of these incredible things that Canadians do need to be told to other Canadians, because I mean, and especially in this time, we need more hope. We need some of this inspiration and motivation to say, hey, look what this guy can do. And so the next one for sure, 100%, whatever it is.
Jesse, look at the boat. Look at the boat. The boat that he rode 53 days in. Not one Red Bull sticker on that boat anywhere.
There should be a big one.
Not any huge company across the side. Not one. And I swear to you, listen to me on this show. I'm going to say it today, Laval. I don't care. You're not going to stop me. I will make sure that there's some logos on whatever I don't care what you're doing. If you're going down Niagara Falls in a barrel, okay.
That would be a good one.
Okay. I'm not joking. I think it is an absolute sin that your boat wasn't decaled like NASCAR when you rode 53 days. I told my wife, I was so upset that whole night when I saw it. I was mad, and I said, nah. I mean, I did Everest in Edmonton. I raised $13,000 in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? And I was doing that's schmucky compared to what you've done. So what I'm trying to tell you is, whatever you do next time, me and Jesse will be all over it like you have no idea.
Yeah,
that's great, guys. You're very flattering.
Well, it's been an absolute honor to talk to you. The reason we found out about you is because I played pickleball with your sister-in-law, and so And I'm friends with Guy White, who you work with.
I just had a conversation with Guy White the other day on the radio, airplane. He was talking about, he said, yeah, I'm going to be watching you on the podcast. And I said, oh, you know about the podcast? And he said, yeah, I'm friends with Jesse. And he said that you're a real madman at pickleball. So I said, well, you're the one who dropped the name. And so, yeah, so I'm sure Guy's watching right now.
He's watching right now. He's been commenting.
And a Newfoundlander as well. So there you go. I think I'll give a shout out to
he's one of my best friends. So it's good. He was very excited about it. And he told me about you once before, and I was like, what? I don't believe you. But but then when we played with your sister-in-law, and she's like, no, this guy's real. And so, I'm like, we looked you up, and you're like, oh, my gosh.
And then we were absolutely ashamed that we didn't know.
Yeah, we were.
We didn't know.
That was actually part of it. It was like, how do we not know? We should know.
Now we let everybody
know. Now everybody knows. But, it's been an absolute honor to talk to you. I really hope that whatever the next thing is that you can do it soon. Of course, as long as your wife gives the green light. And we excited. With the technology we have today, we could follow every step of the way, which is really cool, whatever that is. We need to bring a documentary crew maybe. And...
which we have. Yeah,
and then also too, the speaking things I think is really important too, because I think a lot of people do really appreciate the stories, and more so, it's incredible the things, but more so the mental side of it, where overcoming those things mentally as well is so valuable today. So we hope that all that stuff starts to happen even more for you, because
it's been. I mean, it's slowed down because of the pandemic, but I mean, one of the gigs I did recently, I spoke to the Alberta Golden Bears hockey team. So
wow,
and it was great. It's Zoom, which is a little different. Obviously, it's like doing an interview like this. But I'd prefer to be on a stage, walking back, but you have to adjust, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I think some NFL teams that need to hear you speak. So that's
let's get that NFL money coming in.
We need to see that logo on your backpack next time you're walking somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly.
But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Laval.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks for giving me your time. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Laval St.Germain, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.
Bye. There we go.
Wow. Incredible. Did you see when he was telling the story, Jesse? Do you see, like, he's still in his...
I don't think you can do that without going there. You can't share the story without going there, right? Like, it does bring it up. You have no choice.
You can see that he was still... Of you. Yeah, you can see that it was still in his mind. Like, it was just something wasn't like it's still a thing. It
always will be.
That close to death on multiple occasions, not almost dying. You were almost you were gonna die. You were gonna die.
You are dying, actually.
Yes,
that's what the death zone is. You are dying in that moment.
It lived up to the hype. Laval lived up to the hype. I knew when he came on this show. I told you before. I saw him in a million interviews. The interviewers were horrible. I said this guy hasn't been interviewed correctly. He's a rock star. He should get the Canadian, like you were saying, the merit.
Order of Canada. Yeah.
Order of Canada. He should 100%. He should. And we definitely have to have him back on the show, because you can't do an hour-long interview with Laval St.Germain. You just can't.
We didn't even talk about the rowing. Hardly.
No, and to me, I think that's nuts. Like the Everest thing is crazy with the O2, but the actual rowing for 53 days. When he was telling you about the 8-meter waves, which is 24 feet in a capsized rowboat, and you're going up. I mean, can you imagine? Could you imagine?
I'll be puking my guts out.
Oh, me too. I get sick on that kind of stuff like this quick. Poor Laval, he'd have puke all over him for me,
Well, we have some fights coming up June 18th. You can order that fight on Fight TV, which is awesome, because Fight TV is a big deal now, and
it's a big deal.
The Jake Paul thing, or Logan. I always get the 2 minute, whatever. One of the Paul things.
One of the Pauls.
One of those guys were on there. But anyway, Santoro versus Milet and McNeil. They're on June 18th. The
Santoro brothers are gonna put Edmonton back on the map again for boxing. These two kids are legit. They are exciting to watch. I've seen them train. I've seen them fight. They're only getting better. And trust me when I tell you this, these kids, the Santoro brothers are bang for the buck. You can't beat it. Tune in, Fight TV.
$20.
Yeah, you can't beat it. You can't Fight TV.
And so you can subscribe to that. That's awesome.
See who's on next week?
And next week, speaking of boxing,
champ.
The 8-time world champ, Jelena Martineau, is on the show. There's someone else that at least, like, for sure should have a street named after her in Edmonton.
No!
Because it's shameful that she doesn't.
Shameful.
It's and again, that's part of the Canada thing. We really don't promote
8-time world champ. Should we have 8-time world effing champion and she doesn't have a street named after her? It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life.
I don't get it.
Because but if she was a male 8-time world champ,
well,
she wouldn't just have a street named
after her.
And
that's something, and I can't believe people haven't jumped on that yet. I mean, Spruce Grove is Jennifer Howe Way. We already have that.
It should be, and it should be.
She didn't even win gold, but she got a street.
Yeah, but she deserves it though.
But, yes, I know. I'm just
Jennifer. This look at this. This is like a family reunion because we got Jelena next week on the show, which people were bugging me from day one to put her on the show, and I was being defiant for some stupid reason, and she 8-time world champ on the show, and then the week after, guess who's on the show? Family reunion.
Yeah, you're
Jason the Athlete McDonald, everybody, the first ever fighter from Alberta in the UFC.
And trained by,
he was trained and managed by me, but that's not the relevant part. The relevant part is
the family reunion part.
Family reunion.
Yeah, so I know, and man, the pictures of that guy are insane. That guy was, I didn't know someone could look like that.
It's like you want to wash your clothes, just use his stomach. I mean, it was crazy. Like, this guy was shredded. And don't forget, everybody, Boston Pizza, our boy Terry at Boston Pizza, his patio's open. Get over there.
Yes.
Okay.
Hit those patios up.
Yeah, because the patios are open. So as long as the patios are open,
and the weather's going to get nicer. I mean, it is Alberta. We get cold, but it's going to get nicer. It's time to get out there.
It is time to get out there.
We've been cooped up inside too long.
Yeah, it's a little much.
That's a lot too much.
Well, but next ever 8-time world champion Jelena Martineau on the show next week, everybody. The hits just keep coming. We had Laval St.Germain on today. Well, the only Canadian to climb Mount Everest without O2. The only one. Next week, the 8-time world champs on. It just keeps going, guys.
First ever Albertan in the UFC.
First ever. 20 fights in the UFC.
Who else has been from Alberta? Oh, there's been a few now.
Oh, there's been lots but he was the first ever from Alberta in the UFC, and don't forget his first fight he ever had. We had Ed Herman on the show.
He fought. That was his first fight. Beat him.
Beat him. Yeah.
Nobody's stepping stone.
Nobody's stepping stone, baby. Nobody's stepping stone.
Well, until next time, that's Mark Pavelich. I'm Jesse Martineau. Thank you so much to our guest, Laval St.Germain.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laval. Thank you so much.
Next week, Jelena's on, and that'll be awesome as well. And remember, this is the most exciting 60 minutes you're spending on the internet.
Easily.
It's incredible stories that we're getting here, and we're just they're gonna keep on coming. So next time, Mark is me. I'm Jesse. Me and Jesse podcast. See you next time, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.